Respected if money feels like it slips through your fingers no matter how hard you work. If you've ever wondered why some people seem to attract wealth while others chase it their entire lives, then stay with me, because what you're about to hear isn't about money at all. It's about understanding the invisible rules that control it and, until now, may have been controlling you. Let me tell you a truth that changed my life and has changed the lives of millions of people around the world. Money is not just paper. It's not numbers in a bank account. It's not something outside of you. Money is a result, and like every result in your life, it is created from what's happening inside your mind first. Most people never learn this. They grow up believing money is hard, money is scarce, money is stressful, money causes problems. And then they wonder why, no matter how motivated they are, no matter how many hours they work, their financial reality never seems to change. I want you to imagine for a moment that money is like a mirror. It doesn't judge you, it doesn't reward or punish you. It simply reflects back the beliefs, habits, and emotional patterns you've been running, often unconsciously, since childhood. When you truly understand that, something powerful happens. You stop blaming the economy. You stop blaming your background. You stop blaming other people. And you start realizing that if money is a reflection, then changing the reflection requires changing what's being reflected. I remember hearing a story about someone who won the lottery, overnight millions of dollars. Freedom, right? Happiness, right? Yet within a few years, most lottery winners end up broke again, sometimes worse than before. Why? Because they didn't change their internal money blueprint. Their identity stayed the same, so their results had no choice but to return to familiar territory. On the other hand, you've probably seen people who lose everything in a business failure or market crash, and somehow they come back stronger, wealthier, wiser. Same money, same world, completely different inner programming. Understanding money begins with understanding yourself. From the time you were young, you absorbed ideas about money from parents, teachers, culture, even from moments of fear or embarrassment. Maybe you heard things like money doesn't grow on trees, or rich people are greedy, or we can't afford that. Those words didn't just pass through your ears, they wired themselves into your nervous system, and over time, they became automatic thoughts, emotional reactions, and behaviors you didn't even question. Here's what most people never stop to ask. If money truly comes from effort alone, then why are there people working harder than you who earn less, and people working fewer hours who earn more? The difference isn't intelligence, it's not luck, it's not even opportunity, it's awareness. The people who earn more understand how money works at a deeper level. They see money as a tool, an energy, a system that responds to clarity, value, and aligned action. When you don't understand money, you react to it emotionally. You fear it, you chase it, you avoid looking at your bank account, you feel stress when bills arrive. But when you understand money, you relate to it consciously. You plan, you direct, you decide, and that shift from emotional reaction to conscious direction is where real wealth begins. Think about this for a moment. Money flows to value, always has, always will. When you understand how to create value, communicate value, and multiply value, money follows naturally. But if deep down you believe you're not worthy, not enough, or that success will cost you love or safety, you'll subconsciously sabotage opportunities, you'll procrastinate, you'll undercharge, you'll settle, not because you're lazy, but because your brain is trying to protect you from an imagined threat. This is where the brain comes into the conversation. Your brain's primary job is not to make you rich, it's to keep you safe. And safe often means familiar, even if familiar equals struggle. If you grew up around financial stress, your brain may associate wealth with danger, conflict, or rejection. So every time you get close to a breakthrough, your mind quietly pulls you back to what it knows. Understanding money means understanding that your financial thermostat is set internally. And unless you reset that thermostat, external changes won't last. You can read all the strategies in the world, watch every video, attend every seminar, but if your identity says this is as much as I'm allowed to have, you'll never go beyond it for long. But here's the empowering part. Once you see this, once you truly understand it, you're no longer a victim of your past conditioning. You become the designer of your future. You realize that learning how money works isn't just about budgets or investments, it's about rewiring beliefs, upgrading identity, and aligning your thoughts, emotions, and actions with a new vision of who you are becoming. And that vision matters more than you think. Because money doesn't respond to wishful thinking. It responds to clarity. When you know why you want more money, not just for things, but for growth, contribution, freedom, and impact, your brain starts to work differently. It begins to look for opportunities instead of obstacles, solutions instead of excuses, paths instead of walls. In this first part, I want you to sit with a simple question. What do you truly believe about money? Not what you say out loud, but what your life is proving every day. Your income, your savings, your stress levels, your choices. They are all messengers quietly telling you what's happening beneath the surface. Because once you understand money at the level of belief, identity, and value, making more of it stops being a struggle and starts becoming a natural outcome of who you are. If part one was about realizing that money is a reflection of your inner world, then part two is about understanding how your brain actually creates your financial reality, day by day, choice by choice, often without you even realizing it. Because once you understand this, you stop feeling confused about money, and you start feeling in control again. Here's something most people have never been taught. Your brain is a prediction machine. It is constantly scanning your past to decide what to do in the future. And when it comes to money, your brain is asking one simple question over and over again. What feels normal for me? Not what is possible. Not what is available. What feels normal. If earning a certain amount feels normal, you'll find ways to stay there. If struggling feels normal, you'll unconsciously recreate it. This is not a flaw. This is how the brain is designed. Familiar equals safe. Even when familiar hurts. Think about how many times you've set a financial goal. Maybe you told yourself, this year I'm going to save more, or I am going to earn more, or I'm finally going to get out of debt. At first you feel motivated, you take action, you see progress, and then something happens, an unexpected expense, a missed opportunity, a distraction, a loss of momentum. And slowly, quietly, you slide back to where you started. That slide is not bad luck. It's not failure. It's your brain protecting its identity. Your identity is the invisible force behind every financial decision you make. It's the story you tell yourself about who you are and what's realistic for you. If your identity says, I'm just not good with money, then every time money requires focus, discipline, or courage, your brain will resist. Not because it hates you, but because acting differently would threaten the identity it's trying to preserve. Understanding money means understanding that wealth is an identity before it's an amount. This is why two people can be given the same opportunity and get completely different results. One sees possibility, the other sees risk. One takes action, the other hesitates. Same information, different identity. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Your brain does not distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined with emotion. That means the images you repeatedly hold in your mind, the conversations you replay, the fears you rehearse, they all become instructions to your nervous system. Over time, those instructions turn into habits, habits turn into behaviors, behaviors turn into results. Most people are unintentionally practicing being broke, stressed, or limited. They visualize bills, they anticipate problems, they emotionally relive past financial pain, and then they wonder why abundance feels so far away. When you truly understand money, you realize that your job is not to force wealth into your life. Your job is to become the person who naturally creates it. That shift changes everything. Instead of asking, how do I make more money? You start asking, who do I need to become to handle more money? More discipline, more awareness, more emotional regulation, more value creation, more long-term thinking. Money amplifies who you already are. If you're reactive, money will amplify stress. If you're unconscious, money will disappear. But if you're intentional, money becomes a powerful ally. There's a reason why financial growth often feels uncomfortable. Growth requires leaving the familiar, and your brain resists that at first. That resistance shows up as procrastination, self-doubt, overthinking, or fear of failure. Understanding money means recognizing these signals not as stop signs, but as indicators that you're expanding beyond your old identity. This is also why motivation alone never lasts. Motivation is emotional. Identity is neurological. If you don't change the wiring, you'll keep repeating the same financial patterns, no matter how inspired you feel in the moment. Now imagine what happens when you begin to consciously rewire that identity. When you repeatedly expose your mind to new standards, when you surround yourself with new conversations, when you start making small decisions that align with abundance instead of scarcity, slowly your brain updates its definition of normal. And when normal changes, results follow automatically. This is not magic, it's biology. Understanding money at this level gives you patience with yourself. You stop judging yourself for past mistakes. You stop feeling ashamed of where you are. You realize that every financial result you've had was the outcome of conditioning, not character. And that realization gives you power, because what's learned can be unlearned. What's wired can be rewired. In this part, I want you to reflect on this question. Who have you been being when it comes to money? Not what you want, not what you hope, but who you consistently show up as. The spender, the avoider, the overgiver, the worrier, or the conscious creator. Awareness is the first crack in the old pattern. And once that crack appears, light starts getting in. By now, you're beginning to see that money is not something you chase, it's something you attract by who you become and how you think, feel, and act on a consistent basis. In part 3, we're going to bring this understanding down into real life, into the daily choices, habits, and emotional moments where money is either invited in or quietly pushed away. Because understanding money is not about knowing more. It's about living differently. Let me share something deeply important. Money responds to clarity and direction. When your mind is scattered, your finances are scattered. When your emotions are chaotic, your spending becomes reactive. But when you slow down and become intentional, money starts to flow with more ease. Most people live financially on autopilot. They earn, spend, worry, repeat. They rarely pause to ask themselves, why am I doing this? Or is this aligned with the life I want to build? And without awareness, patterns run the show. Understanding money means bringing consciousness into moments that used to be unconscious. For example, notice how often emotions drive financial decisions. Stress leads to impulse spending. Fear leads to hoarding or avoidance. Guilt leads to overgiving. Excitement leads to risk without planning. None of these are wrong. They're human. But when they're unconscious, they control you. When they're conscious, you can choose differently. This is where the idea of delayed gratification becomes powerful, not as sacrifice, but as self-respect. Every time you pause before spending and ask, is this moving me closer to the life I want? You are training your brain to think long-term. And long-term thinking is one of the defining traits of financially successful people. Another key understanding is this: money loves structure. When there is no structure, money leaks. When there is clarity, nay stays and grows. Structure doesn't mean restriction, it means intention. It means you decide where money goes instead of wondering where it went. But here's what most people miss. Structure must match identity. If you create systems that don't align with who you believe you are, you won't maintain them. This is why people start budgets and abandon them. It's not because they don't care, it's because the system conflicts with their self-image. So instead of forcing discipline, you begin by reinforcing identity. You start seeing yourself as someone who plans, who respects money, who thinks ahead. And once that identity is in place, habits follow naturally.
Let's talk about value, because this is where income expands.
Money is a reward for solving problems. The bigger the problem you solve, the more value you create. The more value you create, the more money you earn. This is not about working harder. It's about thinking differently. It's about asking, how can I be more useful? How can I serve more people? How can I improve my skills, my communication, my impact? When you understand money, you stop seeing it as something taken from others. You see it as an exchange. You give value. You receive money. Both sides win. This mindset removes guilt around earning more. It removes fear of success. You realize that by growing yourself, you're not taking from anyone. You're contributing more to the world. And here's a subtle but powerful shift. People who struggle financially often focus on money first. People who thrive financially focus on growth first. Growth in skills, growth in mindset, growth in service. Money follows growth like a shadow. There will be moments on this journey where old fears come back, moments where you question yourself, moments where it feels easier to retreat into old habits. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means your brain is recalibrating. Every new level of income requires a new level of emotional regulation, responsibility, and self-trust. Understanding money means being willing to feel discomfort without running from it. It also means learning to separate your self-worth from your net worth. Money is a tool, not a measure of your value as a human being. When you confuse the two, you either chase money desperately or reject it entirely. When you separate them, you can build wealth from a grounded, healthy place. As you listen to this, I want you to consider where you can bring more awareness, more intention, and more value into your financial life. Not in massive leaps, but in small, consistent shifts. Because small changes, practiced daily, rewire the brain faster than dramatic efforts fueled by emotion. You're not here to just make money. You're here to master your relationship with it. And mastery comes from understanding, not force. By now, you understand something most people never fully grasp in their lifetime. Money is not the enemy. Money is not the goal. Money is the feedback. It is the result of alignment between your inner world and your outer actions. And in this final part, we talk about what it really takes to sustain wealth, grow it, and allow it to support a meaningful, fulfilled life. Because making money is one thing. Keeping it, growing it, and using it wisely is something else entirely. Understanding money at this level means understanding responsibility, not pressure, not fear. Responsibility as empowerment. When you earn more money, you don't just gain options, you gain influence over your future, over your family, over the people you can help. And that influence requires maturity. This is where many people get stuck. They want the lifestyle, but not the responsibility that comes with it. They want freedom, but not structure. They want abundance, but not accountability. And money doesn't respond well to that imbalance. Wealth grows where respect lives. Respect for money shows up in how you think about it, how you manage it, and how you talk about it. When you respect money, you don't waste it mindlessly, but you also don't cling to it in fear. You use it consciously. You direct it with purpose. This is where long-term vision becomes essential. People who struggle financially often live from one moment to the next. People who thrive financially think in years, not days. They ask themselves, what am I building? Where is this leading? How does this decision affect my future self? When you understand money, you stop asking only, what do I want right now? And you start asking, what kind of life do I want to create? That shift changes how you earn, spend, save, and invest. Another powerful realization is this: money magnifies habits. If you lack discipline, more money creates more chaos. If you lack clarity, more money creates more confusion. But if you have discipline and clarity, money becomes a tool for expansion. This is why personal growth and financial growth must go together. You cannot separate them. The most financially successful people in the world are not just skilled in business or investing. They are skilled in managing their emotions, their focus, their energy, and their identity. Understanding money also means understanding contribution. At the highest level, wealth is not just about accumulation, it's about circulation. Money wants to move, it wants to solve problems, it wants to support ideas, people, and progress. When money flows through someone who understands this, it multiplies. When it's hoarded out of fear, it stagnates. This doesn't mean giving everything away. It means allowing money to have purpose beyond survival. When your financial goals include growth, freedom, and contribution, your motivation becomes deeper and more sustainable. There will be moments when you doubt yourself, moments when the old voice returns and says, "Who do you think you are?" Moments when success feels uncomfortable because it challenges your old identity. That's not a sign to stop. That's a sign you're evolving. Understanding money means staying present through those moments instead of self-sabotaging. It also means forgiving your past. Every financial mistake you've made was part of your education. Shame keeps people stuck. Awareness sets them free. When you release judgment, you free up mental and emotional energy that can now be used to create. As you move forward, remember this: money is not something you chase for the rest of your life. It's something you learn to cooperate with. When your thoughts are aligned, your emotions are regulated, your actions are intentional, and your vision is clear, money becomes a natural byproduct of who you are. You were never meant to struggle forever. You were meant to grow, to learn, to expand, and to live with choice. Understanding money is not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming more of who you truly are, without fear, without limitation, without apology. If you take nothing else from this message, remember this one truth: money has never been the problem. The problem was never your background, your education, or your circumstances. The real challenge has always been understanding how money responds to who you are being on the inside. The moment you stop seeing money as something outside of you, something to chase or fear, everything begins to shift. You start listening instead of reacting. You start learning instead of blaming. You start growing instead of repeating the same patterns. And in that space, something powerful awakens. Choice. Choice is the real currency of wealth. Choice to think differ. Ently, choice to pause before reacting, choice to invest in your growth, choice to design a future instead of inheriting one. You don't need to become perfect. You don't need to have it all figured out. You only need to become aware, aware of your beliefs, aware of your habits, aware of the identity you've been living from, because awareness gives you leverage. And leverage, used consistently, changes lives. There will be days when progress feels slow, days when doubt whispers louder than vision. In those moments, remember this: every time you choose clarity over chaos, intention over impulse, growth over comfort, you are rewiring your brain for a new financial reality. Even when you can't see it yet, the work is happening. Money will come and go, markets will rise and fall, but the person you are becoming, the discipline you're building, the mindset you're strengthening, those stay with you for life. And once you understand money at that level, no external circumstance can ever take your power away. You were not born to live in survival mode. You were born to learn, to expand, to contribute, and to experience freedom. And that freedom begins the moment you decide to understand money, not as a master, but as a tool you can learn to use with wisdom and purpose. So, walk forward with curiosity instead of fear, with patience instead of pressure, with responsibility instead of resistance. Because when you align who you are with what you want to create, money has no choice but to follow. And the most beautiful part of all is this: as you grow financially, you don't just change your life, you change what's possible. For everyone who watches you, learns from you, and walks beside you, that is the real legacy of understanding money.